Ever wondered why wars really happen? We're often told it's about freedom, ideology, or defending a nation's honor. But what if I told you that behind almost every major conflict in history, there's a hidden story? A story about money, resources, and power. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden economics of war. From ancient empires to modern battlefields, we'll uncover how financial motives have shaped human history, and you might be surprised by what we find. Let's travel back in time to the very cradle of civilization. Think of ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the mighty Roman Empire. These weren't just clashes of armies. They were massive economic projects. The primary goals were to capture fertile lands, control vital trade routes, and seize valuable resources like grain, metals, and timber. When Rome conquered a new territory, it wasn't just about planting a flag. It was about acquiring mines, farmland, and, most importantly, people. The spoils of war gold, silver, and other valuables were brought back to the capital, enriching the elite and funding further conquests. Prisoners of war became slaves, providing a massive labor force that fueled the empire's economy. War was, quite literally, the most profitable business venture of the ancient world. It was a brutal but effective model of wealth redistribution and labor exploitation. Now let's fast forward to the medieval and colonial eras. Remember learning about the Crusades? While they were framed as holy wars to reclaim sacred lands, there was a powerful economic undercurrent. Venetian and Genoese merchants, for example, saw a golden opportunity. They funded expeditions and provided ships, not just out of piety, but to establish new trade routes to the east, bypassing their rivals and gaining exclusive access to valuable spices, silks, and other luxury goods. The capture of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade wasn't a religious objective. It was a hostile takeover of one of the world's richest trade hubs. This economic hunger exploded during the Age of Discovery. European powers weren't just exploring. They were on a global treasure hunt. The quest for gold, silver, and spices drove explorers like Columbus and Vasco da Gama across treacherous oceans. This led to a new kind of conflict: colonial wars. The Spanish plundered the Aztec and Inca empires for their gold. The Dutch and the British fought bloody naval wars to control the spice trade in the East Indies. North America was carved up not just for territory, but for its rich resources like fur, timber, and fertile land for cash crops like tobacco and cotton. Colonial expansion was a brutal state-sponsored enterprise designed to extract wealth from conquered lands and funnel it back to the mother country, creating vast global empires built on economic exploitation. The dawn of the modern era didn't change the game. It just raised the stakes. World War I and World War II were conflicts on an industrial scale, unlike anything seen before. They were total wars, meaning the entire economic engine of each nation was dedicated to the war effort. Factories that once made cars were now churning out tanks and planes. The competition wasn't just on the battlefield. It was a battle of production. Which nation could produce more steel, more oil, more ammunition? The economic might of the United States, with its immense industrial capacity, was a decisive factor in the Allied victory in both wars. But it was also about what came after. The wars were fought to secure economic dominance, redraw the global map of resources, and decide who would control international trade and finance in the post-war world. This industrialization of warfare gave rise to a powerful new entity, the military-industrial complex. In his farewell address, President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned of its growing influence. This is the triangle of money and power connecting the military, defense contractors, and politicians. Defense companies thrive on government contracts to build weapons and technology. The more tension and conflict in the world, the more demand for their products. This creates a dangerous incentive, where a state of perpetual preparedness for war, and even war itself, becomes a massive self-sustaining business. It raises a troubling question. If peace means less profit, are there powerful interests that benefit from keeping the world in a state of conflict? Today, the link between war and resources is more explicit than ever. We call them resource wars. Oil is the most obvious example. Control over the world's oil reserves and the shipping lanes that carry it has been a central element of geopolitics for the last century. Conflicts in the Middle East, for instance, are rarely just about ideology. They are intrinsically linked to securing the global energy supply. But it's not just about oil. Think about coltan, a mineral essential for our smartphones and laptops, mined in conflict zones like the Democratic Republic of Congo. Control over these rare earth minerals, gold, diamonds, and even water, is a major driver of modern conflicts. It's a fight for the building blocks of the 21st century economy, a battle to control the global supply chains that power our daily lives. But the economic drivers of war aren't always about gaining resources. Sometimes they're about escaping financial trouble. Throughout history, leaders have used war as a distraction from economic crises at home. A foreign enemy can unite a fractured population and rally them behind the flag, conveniently shifting focus away from unemployment, inflation, or staggering national debt. In some extreme cases, war has been seen as a way to reset a broken economy or even default on unpayable debts. In the modern era, we've also developed more subtle forms of economic warfare. Instead of sending troops, a nation can cripple another's economy with sanctions, trade embargoes, and financial blockades. These tools can be just as devastating as a military invasion, causing widespread hardship and potentially leading to regime change without firing a single shot. It's a clear demonstration that in the global arena, finance is not just an aspect of power. It is power, so who really profits from war? The answer is complex, but one thing is clear: it's a very profitable business for some. The most obvious winners are the arms manufacturers, the companies that design and build the jets, tanks, and missiles. Their stock prices often soar at the first sign of international tension, but the profits don't stop there. Private military contractors, logistics companies that supply troops with food and fuel, and construction firms that win massive contracts to rebuild what was destroyed, they all have a financial stake in conflict. This privatization of war means that for a growing number of corporations, war is not a tragedy to be avoided, but a business opportunity to be maximized. When you look at the billions, even trillions, spent on modern conflicts, it becomes clear that war is one of the biggest economic events on the planet. So what lessons can we draw from this long and often dark history? The first is that we should always be skeptical when told a war is purely about abstract ideals like freedom or democracy. While these values are important, they are often used as a public justification for deeper economic motives. The second lesson is that these patterns are not new. The Roman general seeking slaves and gold and the modern corporation securing a mineral contract are acting on similar economic impulses, separated only by time and technology. Therefore, to truly understand war, we must learn to be economic detectives. We need to look beyond the headlines and ask the tough questions. Who stands to gain financially from this conflict? What resources are at stake? Who is funding the fighting? By following the money, we can uncover the hidden logic that so often drives nations to the battlefield. Understanding the economics of war doesn't make it any less tragic, but it does give us a clearer picture of why it happens, and hopefully, how we might one day prevent it. Thanks so much for watching. If this video gave you a new perspective on history and current events, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.